Okay. Well, hello everyone to this virtual tour of Islandora 8 version 1.1.0. I'm Danny Lamb, tech lead for the Islandora Foundation. So I guess maybe as like an understatement of the century, a lot has happened since June, especially in recent weeks. But global pandemics aside, we released Islandora 8 in June of last year, and there has been quite a bit of motion. And so we're very pleased to show all the things that have been developed by our awesome community that are now going to be made available to you. Um, so after we released Islandora 8 version 1.0.0, we did a community survey and we asked 3 questions, and it was pretty simple. Each one was just a checklist, and it was, what features do you absolutely need before you would consider moving to Islandora 8? What features are not necessary and you don't care about, and then what features are like in the nice to have, but you're not super concerned about them category. And so we got a really good response from the community from this survey. We got 76 total responses, which is pretty good for a community our size. Um, and it turns out here I've got the list of our top requested features. These were our top 10. I'm not going to necessarily list every single one of these here. You can see. Um, but fortunately, thanks to again our awesome community of developers and testers and documenters, we are shipping with 5 out of 10 of these features in 1.1.0. So we will be, and this is what I'm demoing here: page content, the OAI PMH endpoint, OCR derivatives, search and discovery improvements, and versioning. So we are managing to deliver half of the top 10 features in, um, I guess, 8 months' time on a crew of completely, volunteer work. It's actually pretty incredible. If I were working for a real business with payroll and we paid employees to do this stuff and we managed to get this many improvements out of them in this much time, I'd be pretty happy. So the fact that this comes out from completely volunteer-based work is pretty incredible. So I guess I'll just kind of roll right into just some general overviews of how all these features are gonna work with some screenshots, and we'll talk about them, and then we can um, peel out. And I've got an instance of the build that is soon to be the release, hopefully by the end of day today, and we can go through everything. Um, so page content, this was our number one of the top 10. There were 76 people who responded to the survey. 66 people said that they absolutely needed page content before they would consider moving to Islandora 8. So to address that, we created 3 new models to use. There is a page model, which is your individually scanned pages. You can also tag something as being paged content, which is a sequence of those pages. You can think of this as your individual book or your newspaper issue. The thing that you want the multi-paged viewer showing, right? That is your page content. And then we have another model that's kind of like the inception of that. We have the publication issue, which is a sequence of page content or other publication issues. So you can think of this as like the serial or the journal itself, or of the newspaper itself, and not like an individual issue, um, stuff like that. And so the way uh, you can see that page content um, is structured is almost exactly the same as a collection. There really isn't a ton of difference between a collection and page content. They certainly use the same relationships that we're used to now. So files point to their descriptions. They say that they're a file of this description, and then the descriptions point towards the collection that they belong to. So all of this still holds. We still use all the same predicates and all the same fields. The only difference is that in page content, the children are ordered. Um, that is the only significant difference between a collection and page content. In fact, you could even think of page content essentially as an ordered collection. Um, just a special one that we're doing some special viewer tricks with. So ordering page content, it's dictated by a field we're calling weight, which is sort of a Drupalism. You can weight things in Drupal to control where they show up in lists. Um, Leaving weight empty results in an unordered child or an unordered collection. So if you're going through and you're filling out forms and you don't care about any of this stuff and you just leave it all blank, you're just going to get like a regular unordered collection with children. Um, if you fill out the weight, then it only takes positive values, and Drupal kind of allows negative values if you want to like shoot something to the top. But we're not playing any games like that. Doesn't really make sense to have a negative page in a book. Um, so we have positive values only for the weight, and if you fill that out in the form, you get an ordered child. And by default, weight is represented in RDF by CO index. So it's the Perl collection ontology. Um, if you go through and you create a book or a newspaper issue or something of the sort, and you go through and you set up all of the orderings for everything and you realize that there's something wrong, you don't have to go through all the individual forms and bump all of them up by one and move one back. That's a terrible user experience. So we do have a user interface for that. You can control how many items that you're allowed to see per page to reorder, and it is smart enough to know how to go across the breaks between your pager. Um, so there is a user interface for that, and it will automatically um, reorder all of the pages for you and then save all of them and then re-index everything. So it's very nice. For each page content, so when we were developing this, and as you know, this is a community-driven project, and the people who are doing the work generally drive the direction that we take. Um, as tech lead, I keep my hands on the reins, but I generally keep a loose grip there. It's best to let things play out with many voices. It almost always the best solution comes at the top. Um, and so when we were doing page content, kind of the way it was decided was instead of figuring out a single viewer and making a viewer show all of the pages in the page content, we thought it would be better to create IIIF manifests because IIIF manifests are a standard that viewers are known to work with. So if we could do just this part, then we had a much better chance of compatibility with other things, further down the line. Um, so every IIIF, excuse me, um, every page content has a IIIF manifest. You can go view the IIIF manifest. Its URL is just like, /node/id/manifest. Um, and this is configurable. You can go admin structure views, view IIIF manifest. Um, and control everything there. So yes, this is a view, which is incredible. It means that basically everything is under your control. So you can create another view if you want, or edit simply the view that we provide by default. But you can configure the query that will select the images for the manifest. So if you can, kind of break it down into logic, like find me all the things where, like this equals that, um, then you can very selectively choose how you generate all of your manifests. By default, it simply looks for all of the service files to display, per that are on all of the children for any node that you visit. That is the default query. Um, and so this was contributed by Joe Coral from Kent State, which is a very nice contribution from them. And because of that, we are now opened up to many more options when it comes to having viewers. So our first viewer that we did have was Seadragon. So we had Seadragon for what we were coining as large images, TIFFs or very high quality JPEGs. And we were using Cantaloupe, a IIIF image server, um, to view them, and then we were using Seadragon to look at them. But Seadragon does support multiple images if you want. So we did do a little bit of work, and we made Seadragon read the IIIF manifest that we're now generating. And so from that manifest, it will parse apart all of the files that it needs to display, and it will actually create the list of them. Um, and so you can go through and go into your site's configuration settings for the Seadragon viewer, and you can, control every last aspect of it. So by default, we get something called sequence mode, where you have, as in the image here, you have all of the images, and there's just left and right arrows to toggle through them. You can create something called collection mode, which will let you arrange all of the images in rows or columns or grid if you want both. And you can also have like a kind of they call it the reference strip. It looks like a little film strip of all the pages down at the bottom for you to choose from. So you have lots of options when viewing that. So that's the only viewer that we're shipping with now. However, there is still a pull request sitting out there for the Mirador viewer. So you will see the Mirador viewer very soon, hopefully. Kind of bundled up with page content, and these were technically listed as separate features in our survey, but they do kind of go hand in hand. But we do, so text extraction was another one that was high up on the list of things that we needed to provide. And so whenever you're creating these page content objects, anytime you create a page, it will automatically have OCR run on it. So it will kick things off in the background to Tesseract, and Tesseract will extract the text, and then we'll store that back as a file in your repository. But then that file, its contents, will actually get I don't want to use the word extracted because they already got extracted. They'll get pulled out and they'll be placed as a field on your media. So because the extracted text is pulled out and put on as a field, that means that then it can be like indexed in Solr, which means that it's searchable and discoverable, which is pretty standard. I mean, that is the functionality that we're expecting going from 7 to 8. And fortunately, it is all done using kind of core Drupal or contrib modules, well-used contrib modules in Drupal. So like that whole process is now completely done through the user interface. And we can kind of step through that in the demo shortly. Also, in addition just to pages and page content, lots of times folks have PDFs that they want to use as well. And so we also have PDF text extraction. So it's not page content, but if you do upload a PDF and tag it as a digital document, that's the model we're using for PDFs, it will, the same microservice that runs Tesseract also is smart enough to sniff if you're handing it a PDF. And if you do hand it a PDF, it will turn around and use PDF to text from popular utils and will extract the text that way. And just like OCR, it comes in as a file, then the contents of the file get indexed as a field, and then because it's a field, you can put it in Solr. We also have versioning, very important for a digital repository to be able to keep versions of things and be able to revert to versions. So before, with 1.0.0, we did have at least the Drupal notion of a version. In Drupal, that's called a revision, revisioning of content. And so that was always there, but it didn't actually flow through into the preservation layer. So now, fortunately, through the work of Arizona State, Eli Zoller in particular, who is now a committer, I might add, Drupal revisions actually will line up with Fedora versions. So every time you create a revision in Drupal, it will go and slice a version in the preservation layer. And so you can revert to these revisions. You have a UI for viewing the revision. I might add that when you revert, it doesn't actually roll back the stack of revisions. It creates a new one on top. So it's kind of a non-destructive history of everything that happened. You just slap another one on top, basically. And in Fedora, the versions, they follow something called a memento specification. So behind the scenes, it's creating these different types of containers to hold the versions, and there's special processes through which you actually make the version through web requests and stuff. But the end result is that you can actually request um, the versions by giving it a date. Give me the version at this point in time, or give me all of the versions within some date range, and you can actually make a request and get that. And when you have all of that stuff, it actually is, that's what makes it compatible with things like the Wayback Machine. So they follow this memento specification. So we think that's a pretty neato feature that your preservation layer um, provides. We're also shipping now with an OAI PMH endpoint. So this was another kind of big one. A lot of people want to get, um, they want their content to be slurped up by DPLA. Um, and so again, this is another awesome view trick contributed to us by Drew Coral from Kent State, one of our pilot projects. Um, and so again, just giving credit where it's due here. Joe has contributed some pretty stellar features in this new release here. But so sort of just like the IIIF manifest, you use views to control what gets exposed through your OAI PMH endpoint. And so it's configurable at the view level. And I've got a link to where you can go to actually configure that view. Um, And there's also this configuration page here where you can set which view you want to use and stuff like that, and control the metadata mapping. There are multiple ways to control what metadata ends up in your OAI PMH endpoint. By default, we pick basically Dublin core that we pull out of the RDF mapping. But there are other ways that you can do it. You can use the meta tag module in Drupal, and it will read your meta tags. And you can also, which is kind of a technique we're promoting for later, you can use a twig template to just simply render out whatever you want. So if you wanted some super complicated mods to get in there, you would probably provide a twig template to render it out from your fields. So it's there kind of and it's kind of like Solar indexing. It happens, but it doesn't necessarily happen immediately. It gets queued up using Drupal cron, and so you have to go through and rebuild it. You see that there's a rebuild tab here, and we'll kind of step through all of this stuff while we're doing the demo. But so if you go and create a bunch of content and go through and rebuild here, then you will actually see something that sort of looks like this when you go visit it, and it's at the URL you would sort of expect it to be. And so you can get your XML output from there. And so also we have, I believe this is the last one I'm going through here. We do have some, we're calling it improved search. So the feature that was requested was enhanced, just better search. And so we're not making the search engine any better. We're using Solar as the underlying search engine, which is very stable and very fast and used worldwide for full text searching. So we can't improve that, but we can give you better defaults and a better setup. So when you install version 1.1.0, you're going to get a lot more search functionality set up for you out of the box. So we index a bunch of fields. So before you were just getting title, now we're giving you lots of other stuff, the description, the title, subjects, etc. That's not even the full list. That's just what I could capture in a screen cap. If you look here at the very bottom here, you can see the edited text. It looks like, yeah, Drupal, or excuse me, Google Slide wants to put an overlay over what I'm trying to move my mouse to. But yeah, it still does it even if I'm over there. Hilarious. You can see here at the very bottom, definitely not going to move my mouse. Edited text is here. And so all the edited text from any media automatically gets put onto a description. So you can search for it. We also have facets. So this was, I just tossed one thing into an empty box to show you here, but down at the bottom, again, I don't want to trigger that thing. But here is a subject that we've tagged with it. So you're automatically going to get some facets by default with what we're calling reasonable defaults. Maybe that's a bit loaded of a question. Certainly Islandora is very configurable and customizable and not, you know, it's not necessarily one size fits all. Not everyone's going to want the same thing, but we're really doing our best to try to provide you with just something out of the box so that even if it's not um, what you want exactly, you can still kind of like copy paste your way through it. You know, you can look at the examples that we have, and then you can kind of bumble around in the UI, and you'll see it's not that bad. It's pretty easy to set up a custom facet, um, and so at least we have just a body of work for you to draw from when you're trying to set up your repository. So that's the main features coming out in 1.1.0. I didn't mention breadcrumbs, but breadcrumbs were another one that we managed to get in there. That wasn't in the top 10 requested features, but it was something that we provided. But kind of the question now is, okay, so that's all the nice stuff you have. Thanks for telling me about it, Danny. But what's next for the project? And so really what you're going to see is just we're going to kind of repeat this process again. So what's going to happen next is after we make the release, we're going to issue another survey. I think we learned a lot from the last survey, not just in terms of what we can get from the community, which is a lot. I mean, 76 responses from a community of like 300 installs. That's pretty darn good. Um, but really, we learned a lot about um, how we need to phrase things and how we need to structure the form to try to get more input or just to make things really clear. But we are going to create another list of features and kind of run you through the same gauntlet, yes, no, and I don't care, um, and have you select from that. um, and I think what you'll see is that obviously we'll curate the list of features and allow you to add what you want in there if there's something we didn't add. But what we're going to try to push for here in a lot of ways is um, things that people are still expecting from 7. I think those are going to get priority. But then also user interface work, user experience, trying to minimize the number of clicks, trying to have things kind of be auto selected for you or figure it out for you. I mean, really what we want to do um, is smooth out the entire process of working with Islandora. We have a really good product, an amazing product that we give away for free, which is incredible. You could pay SAP. Sorry if SAP is in the audience, but you could pay SAP, millions of dollars for a project like this, and this is something that we're giving away for free. But um, really, we want to make sure that the wow factor when you first look at it and you first try to use it, we really want to smooth that over. So hopefully you'll see some improvements there also coming down the line. So again, sort of things from 7, Islandora 7, that we haven't managed to duplicate yet in Islandora 8, which there's not many of those remaining. And then user experience, user interface, general look and feel, and just all around just better overall, smoother experience. So that's what we're looking to prioritize next. See, I'm gonna hop out of here and into my instance. Oops. There we go. So we already got some content here, but this is an Islandora 8, a 1.1.0 box, which will become officially available here, hopefully by the end of the day. But this is essentially what you can expect to see when you get it. And so let's see, let's try to just let's do some things here. So I'm going to make a piece of page content first. So the way you can do that, there's lots of different places where you can get to this add content button, but I'm just going to go up to the admin toolbar here and go and add content. And in my repository item, if I look when I go make something, I'm just going to call this demo book. So you can see here for our models, we now have some new ones. So here's page content, and the publication issue that I mentioned earlier here. We're going to tag this as page content. That's how we know it's like the book. and you can just hit save. So hopefully my poor laptop works quickly for us on this demo. So here we've created kind of the container parent object to hold everything. We want to add the pages as children, so we can go to the children's tab here, and we can just say add a child. Here's the button for the reordering. We'll get to that in a second here. So we're going to basically kind of lather, rinse, repeat here. And we're just going to keep kind of doing the same thing. So here, except now my model is just a page. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a weight of 1. Now, we don't have to do this. You can just go to the reordering thing later on. But I'm just going to go ahead and do it for completeness. All right. You see here, we've got breadcrumbs. So I can actually hop, well, back to the book. First, let's give this a TIFF. I'm getting ahead of myself here. So we go to the page, go to its media tab, and we add a media to it. Unfortunately, Drupal thinks TIFFs are files. It doesn't consider a TIFF to be an image. Hopefully that will change soon. Okay, I don't know if you guys can see my dialogue here, but I'm opening files. So very important that you mark uploads as original files. They can be marked as other things. Certainly, you know, if you want to individually upload a thumbnail, right, we still allow that. But for the most part, if you want to upload something and have derivatives take off and everything, you have to mark it as an original file. When you tag it as that, that's what tells the system in the background to do its thing. So we're going to save this here. Give it a sec. So now that we saved this, what's going on is in the background, kind of all of these rules are getting looked at through the context module. Okay, this thing that got uploaded, it's a page and it belongs to this page content. What do I need to do? And it's going to start kicking off derivatives. So it's going to go, it's going to extract the text from it. It's going to run fits on it. That's something I didn't mention. It wasn't in the top 10 features, but it's a big one. We're running fits on it, getting the fits output. We're also generating service copies and thumbnails and stuff like that. So if we go here, this is the actual media. You'll see this is just the TIFF. And it says that it's a media of that first page. So we can kind of work our way back here. All right, so here you can see we've got a regular JPEG that's been made out of the TIFF as a derivative. We can go here in the media. We'll see a list of all of them. And it's churned out even the fits. So all of these got generated automatically just from uploading this one file. And we can go back, we can look at the book. And now we'll have the multi-paged Open Seadragon viewer, except it's not multi-page because there's only one page. So let's just go ahead and repeat the process. We'll add a second page, and then I'll reorder the pages. I'll show you guys that too. So again, we're just gonna kind of churn through these forms here. A second demo page. Tag it as a page. You can see it's automatically given the correct membership settings, so it will follow the hierarchy. And I'm going to give this a weight of 2. I'm going to save it. And then just like the last page, we're going to go upload a TIFF for it. Okay. So I'm just going to call it demo page to original file. Everything else should be okay. And so again, saving this, it's kicking off all these background processes that go. But we can just kind of work our way back here to the actual book. So here we should see, is it generated already? Yeah. So it's gone ahead. It's already generated the service copy. So we've got a regular JPEG we can show in the browser and stuff like that. And if we go back to our book, Now you can see we've got the arrows here. So we can kind of page through the files. Give it a sec to load there. So we can page through the files this way. Um, I'll show you that reordering real quick, and then I'm going to actually go play with some of the settings here, so you can see this, what you can do with Open Seadragon. Um, so here, if we go to children, we can go and reorder the children, and this is going to be fairly trivial here, but I'm just going to do this and hit save. And so let's go back to the book, and now you can see we've got that kind of electrical diagram first, and the actual letter second. So you can reorder everything, and it will work with books with more pages than just two. Um, so let's go through and look at some of those Seadragon settings that might be something you'll want to tweak. So you can go in our admin toolbar here, configuration. It's under media. There's Open Seadragon settings, and if you click on this, um, it's actually a really big form. There is a lot of stuff that you can do with Open Seadragon, and we're definitely not going to explore all of this here because there is just an absolute um, boatload of stuff that you can do. But here you see it's called sequence mode. You see this box. This is the default. So this is what you've got. You can play with these here, like show the reference strip. Um, and let's save that. And then afterwards, I'll show you here the collection mode, and you can. These are all good things to play with. So let's go back to the demo book here. Let's see if it's smart enough to do that. I might have to clear my cache for it to take effect. Looks like it. Yeah. All right, I'll just do that real fast. So configuration, where is it? Okay, sorry, I'm gonna clear my cache to the user interface. I'll spare you me popping into the console to do it. It is much faster, but we'll clear all caches this way. My poor VM's chugging along here. Sorry, folks. All right, there it goes. Where are we? Okay, so now we got the reference strip here. Sorry about that, folks. Should have done that for you automatically. But you can use this reference strip to navigate through the pages, which is pretty nice. You can control its size. I think you can show it, have it show up on the left instead of the right, or as a column instead of a row. But then if we go back here, let me show you another nice one. I think this is actually is a little bit better of a view, although it is more resource intensive. So if we go down here, let me uncheck the reference strip since we're not going to use that here. So instead of sequence mode, I'm going to click on collection mode. When you do that, you'll see sequence mode grays out. You can't play with it anymore. But this will put everything basically in a strip, so you can do rows, columns. You can create the size of your grid however you want. And we're going to save it. And something tells me I'm going to have to clear my cache again, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Not leave anything to chance here. And while that goes here, hopefully it goes quick. Again, there it goes. All right. So now we can see it in collection mode, which I think is a nicer way to look at things, but it does load all the pages at once. So that's something you're going to want to be mindful of. So here you can see we've got them all in a row, and you can scroll through that way, which is pretty neat. You got to click here. If you scroll, it will still zoom. You get that nice deep zoom that everyone loves. So that's our viewer options. We do have a PR out for Mirador. We are often asked about Internet Archive Book Viewer. I'm sure that's on the horizon for sure. So, okay, let's see. What else can we do? Oh, I guess I should show you the manifest here. So we're on the book, note 11. I can type in, oop, that's plural, sorry. There's only one manifest. So here you can see this is our actual IIIF, presentation API JSON here for the manifest, and it lists out all the different um, images that we use. So we don't have a ton of information bubbling up yet. Really, it's just kind of the list of images and the technical metadata about those images, like their MIME type and width and height, pixels, and et cetera. But eventually, for improvements, we would like to start actually bubbling metadata up into this so that you could, in theory, display the metadata in an overlay, on top of the book or something like that. So very basic, but right now this is there. It's completely configurable, so you can totally change it up however you want. I might add that this block here is built by basically pointing at that manifest. When you set the block, you configure it. You don't have to point at a manifest you create. You can point at any manifest. So if you have one out there in the wild that you want to point at on another server, we're all still completely compatible with that. It will run everything through. So I guess I can show you the OAI-PMH endpoint and then some search stuff. And I'm going to try to do that real fast, like 5 minutes, and then I'll yield and have folks in the audience hammer me with questions. Oh, right. But first, before that, versions. So here we have revisions. That's what they call them in Drupal. We only have one. I've only done one thing. Let's go and edit it and see what's up though, right? So I'm going to edit this. It's a demo book for demonstrations. And we're going to save. So very important, you can see right here, hopefully it doesn't go too fast, this create new revision. Whenever that's checked, you're going to create a revision. Anytime you create a revision, it's going to make a version in Fedora. Now, this is set to be on by default. You can certainly turn it off and have that be more of a manual process if you want to be able to work through things and not be triggering a revision every single time. But basically, it's this tick box right here. This is what controls everything with revisioning. It's core Drupal stuff. So if we go here, we can look at our revisions. Now we should have 2 revisions. You can revert back to the original one. And if we go into Fedora to look at our object, here you can see we got the URI for where it is in the preservation layer. We can click on that. And then here you can see we have versions. You click view versions. So it works a little bit differently. This is like the original version that you have here. And then it doesn't have a version for it, but it just is the current incarnation of the document that has the second version here. You can see here we have the alternative title. So you can view through all of your versions on both ends, both on Drupal and on the back end in Fedora. Okay, so OAI-PMH. And sorry if you folks hear that. I think like everyone else, we've all got kiddos running around as we adapt to the new way of life. So apologies. Excuse me. Web services, OAI-PMH settings, it's here. So configuration, web services, OAI-PMH. This is what I had the screen cap of. So use a view to control what gets in to the endpoint here. And we click down here so you can see what you do to do the mapping. It says you can do RDF or meta tags. If you register a template with within the module, you can also select the template. But for now, we're just using, basically the Dublin core that comes from the RDF mapping. And so just something real quick, the first time you make content, it's not going to show up in your OAI PMH endpoint because it hasn't been indexed. So if you go to this rebuild thing here, you can rebuild it manually. So it will slowly over time happen using Drupal cron, but if you want to just go ahead and do it, it's going to rebuild everything, and it'll tell you, hey, you can come see your stuff here. So you can see everything. Here's a PDF I uploaded earlier. Let's see if we can get down. Here's our demo. So there's the demo pages. So by default, this is set to select everything that's not a collection. That is really what that view does. It's very naive, and of course you can, customize this to your heart's content. And so also similarly, kind of, it's not web services here where it's search and metadata. I'll just show you how we configure searching and stuff like that. You go click here on the search API. You'll get some information about your Solar server, and if it's up, you get the checkbox, right? And then here in the index, we create a default index for you. If you want to go add new fields to be indexed, this is where you do it. So here you can say, I want, nodes, I want media, I want files, etc. By default, we have taxonomy terms and just regular node content getting indexed in Solar. If you go through here in fields, this is where you can just add a new field. So you can see we've got quite a bit here, right? Subject, tags, title, table of contents, physical form, just a whole ton of stuff. If you want to add more, you can just do it right here. It also is smart enough to know relationships. So if a description has media and that media has a file, you can actually work your way through that chain of relationships and have everything that's available on the medias or the files also be available on the node. That's how this edited text works here. It's got that really long, crazy name, but that's because it's actually working its way through the relationships in order to get at that content. And if you want to reindex everything here, you go to this view tab, it'll show you everything that's here. It's enabled, so everything's indexed, so it doesn't want to do anything. It's not gonna let me do it. But you can click here at this queue all items for reindexing. If you click on that, it's gonna basically throw something for every piece of content onto the pile to get it done, and it'll get churned through as Drupal cron goes, but we can force its hand now. Just tell the index now. So it's going to go through the patch. It's going to reindex everything. And so just real quick, I'm already a minute over. Sorry, folks. Oops. Maybe I didn't want to do that. Let me just go ahead and go back here to the searching. So we're at the search API. Here's facets, and you can create the facets here. Here are the default facets that are created for you. Here's the subject one, and they're pretty configurable. There's quite a bit that you can do. You can rewrite the label. You can sort what order the facets show up in the sidebar. Don't show unless you've got at least 5 results. Don't show more than 50 results. All of this stuff can all be configured here. You can even give it weird processors and stuff like that if you're like a Solar wizard. There's just a ton of information here, very customizable, very configurable, maybe a little overwhelming, however, at first, which is why we've decided to give you these kind of 5 by default. So you can look to these for inspiration when setting up your own. And just to show you that they are there, I will do a quick site search, and then we'll go from there. So I know for a fact in one of the PDFs I ingested, talking about building a Gradle, they talk about JUnit, Java unit testing framework. So here you can see we've got this stuff that shows up here. So you actually get the search result highlights. And then I tagged this book with the subject of programming. So this is the facet that I'm getting. This is a fairly empty box, but as you go and tag things, you can expect to see these fill out more. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna move you to the thanks Oopsie, move you to the thanks slide in my um, deck because uh, I have to do this for using it at Slides Go. They asked me to keep this to give proper attribution to everyone. But I'll just go ahead and yield now and let folks ask me questions if they have any.
All right, we had a couple of questions come through the text. The first was asking what the timeline looks like for the Mirador pull request.
Timeline, I don't know. That one's kind of languished there for a bit, but I'm hoping that this release will kind of kick the tires under it. Last I looked, it just had a few things kind of baked in that were like hard coded that need to be pushed into configuration, and after that we can accept it. So definitely not next week, but certainly before the next release in 6 months or what have you. So whatever that is, I'll wave my hands here and I'll just say soon.
Next question is there a way to import a book into the collection without adding the pages one by one?
So there is, and we're working on creating a demo of that for you. So the best way to do it, and unfortunately I have to say, kind of look at this example and adapt it, which will lose a lot of folks. And so we're actually going to create a direct example of it, but we're going to take the current tools that we have for migrating using CSVs, which right now just imports 5 images into a collection, and we're going to adapt that and actually make a page content version of that you can use to get all of the book and all of its pages all at once, all using a spreadsheet.
Next question is, presumably you can provide a weight to any repository item and not just pages. Does that do anything? For example, could you use it to create something similar to compound objects?
I didn't quite catch the beginning of that, but I'm assuming what you mean is just kind of our tags are very generic, and this certainly has a lot of overlap with compound objects. If you had a compound object where it made sense for things to be sequenced, you could very much just use this directly. And if not, if you wanted to play with it a little bit, a lot of what happens, like the viewer getting displayed and what derivatives get created, a lot of that is already actually configurable kind of at your fingertips. So if what we have doesn't exactly fit your use case, it's still pretty easy to just go and mint a new taxonomy term, because that's really what a model is. And then you can create your own rules around that if you had something else. But certainly you could take this right now and use it to create like a postcard that has a front and a back. No problem.
That's all the questions we have so far, but I'll pause for a moment in case somebody is still typing, or if anyone wants to raise their hand to be unmuted and ask a question with voice. Here we go. When will there be a downloadable virtual box with this version?
So hopefully today. If not today, then whenever I can upload it with my internets here. So basically the reason why the release hasn't happened is simply a technical reason. As I was kind of doing all my branching, merging, tagging, the minutia of actually doing the release, some things shifted and we just had some tests start showing up red. And so I just have to make sure that our continuous integration system is happy and is green. This is just our workflow that we use when we work with each other, right? Even as tech lead, I'm not allowed to just kind of ram things through. So we do have to make sure that the tests get executed properly and run. And then once that happens, then I can finish tagging everything and we have a release. And so at that point it's released, but then after that I have to actually take the OVA that I have and upload it somewhere, which on my country internets can take a couple hours. So very soon, if not today, then tomorrow.
Do we have any other questions? Oh, here we go. Understanding this may be off topic, but the question is, it seems like server deployment doesn't work on most recent version, on the most recent version of Ansible. Is there a plan to port to 2.9 and above?
Yes, there is. And it's not really about porting as much as updating. So when we went through this release process, as we started this, it was still basically we couldn't support the newest version because of someone else's code that we use. So we use a Gearling guy role. I don't want to get into the weeds, but they're kind of like the standard roles for things. And one of them just had an issue with the newest Ansible. Um, as we've gone through the release process, that downstream role has actually fixed itself, so it's available for us to use. However, I don't want to update all of our underlying roles right now, like as I'm releasing. That's not very safe to do. So essentially, as soon as this release is sliced, then we're going to go through and bump up all of the underlying dependencies, and it will work with the newest Ansible. And we've had people in the um, community test just that role, and it does work.
All right, well, we're just about at the end of our time here. I'd like to thank everyone very much for joining us. Thank you for the excellent questions. And thank you to Danny for the presentation and the live demo. Always dicey, but it went pretty well.
Just had to clear my cache once. Pretty good.
Go ahead.
I would say just keep an eye out for the release announcement. You should see that very soon. And please do if you get an email about the survey or you see us talking about the survey, please do take the time to fill it out. This really does drive the development of Islandora. It's very valuable feedback, kind of a low impact way that you can really help contribute to the project.
Indeed. I will be sending out we will be posting this to our YouTube channel once we process the video. I will send out a link to the recording and to the slides to all of you who've attended. If you want to watch it again or share it with colleagues who were not able to attend. And please keep an eye out for our schedule. We try to do at least one of these a month, so we'll be coming up with something real cool for you in April that I'm looking forward to sharing with you soon. And thanks, everyone. Stay safe out there.
Thanks, everyone.